The wind cut through the empty street like a blade, carrying with it the kind of cold that doesn't just chill, it erases. Under the flickering glow of a street lamp, something small and dark lay motionless against the curb, dusted lightly with snow. Most people would have driven past. Most wouldn't have noticed at all, but he did. At first he thought it was a kitten, some poor stray, that had wandered too far from shelter. He pulled over, engine still running, and stepped out into the bitter night. The cold hit him immediately, sharp and unforgiving. He knelt down, brushing snow from the tiny form, and that's when he saw them. The tufted ears, the spotted coat, the wild, delicate markings that didn't belong to any house cat he'd ever known. A bobcat kitten, barely breathing, frozen nearly solid, his heart hammered in his chest. He didn't think, he didn't hesitate. He peeled off his coat, wrapped the kitten inside, and cradled it against his chest. As he ran back to the truck, the heater roared to life, but the kitten didn't move. Not yet. The drive home felt endless. Inside his house, the warmth was a stark contrast to the violence of the cold outside. He cleared the coffee table in one sweep, laid out towels, and grabbed heating pads from the closet. His hands worked on instinct, gently thawing frozen paws, wrapping the kitten in layers of soft fabric, checking for breath, for a heartbeat, for any sign that he wasn't already too late. The bobcat's chest rose, fell, rose again. He let out a breath he didn't know he was holding. Just one night, he whispered to himself, more a prayer than a promise. Just get through tonight, then I'll call someone, a rescue center, someone who knows what they're doing. But even as he said it, he couldn't look away. The kitten was so small, so impossibly fragile. Its fur was matted and dull, its body limp, its eyes sealed shut. He adjusted the heating pad, kept the towels snug, and sat back on his heels, watching, waiting. The house was silent, except for the hum of the heater and the faint ticking of the kitchen clock. And then movement, not from the bobcat, from the hallway. Milo appeared in the doorway, ears forward, tail low. The orange tabby moved cautiously, each step deliberate, his green eyes locked on the strange shape lying on the table. The man tensed, ready to intervene. Milo had never been aggressive, but this wasn't a house cat. This was something wild, something that, in any other circumstance, would have been a threat. But Milo didn't hiss, didn't arch his back, didn't retreat. He stepped closer. The bobcat kitten didn't stir. Its breathing was shallow, labored. Milo tilted his head, nose twitching, taking in the scent. And without warning, he hopped onto the table, circled once, and settled down beside the tiny predator. Slowly, gently, Milo began to groom the bobcat's frozen ears, his rough tongue working over the delicate tufts, with the same care he'd give to his own fur. The man froze. He didn't move, didn't speak. He just watched, stunned, as his house cat, a creature who had never shown interest in anything beyond naps and food, took on the role of protector. Milo's purr rumbled softly in the quiet room, a low, steady vibration that seemed to fill the space with something warmer than heat. The bobcat's breathing steadied. Hours passed. The man stayed awake, checking on them both, adjusting towels, keeping the warmth constant. Milo never left. He curled his body around the bobcat, tucking the smaller animal against his chest, shielding it from the world. It was instinct, maybe, or something else, something the man couldn't quite name. By the time the first light of dawn began to creep through the windows, the bobcat's paws had started to twitch. Its tiny claws flexed, its breathing grew stronger, and Milo, still wrapped around it, purred on. The man sank into the chair across from them, exhaustion pulling at his bones, but he couldn't close his eyes. Not yet, because what he was witnessing didn't make sense. In every wildlife documentary he'd ever watched, predators didn't bond with prey, domestic animals didn't adopt wild ones. Nature didn't work like this, but here it was, happening right in front of him. He thought about the rescue centers, phone calls he'd promised himself he'd make in the morning, the professionals who would come and take the bobcat to a proper facility, where it could be cared for by people who knew better than him, people who understood wild things. But as he watched Milo groom the bobcat's ears again, as he saw the kitten's chest rise and fall in rhythm with the tabby's purr, a question settled in his mind, one he couldn't shake. Why would a domestic cat instantly adopt a wild predator that should have terrified him? The bobcat stirred, just barely, A twitch of the whiskers, a shift of the head. Milo responded immediately, adjusting his position, his body curving protectively around the smaller animal. The man leaned forward, elbows on his knees, and let the question hang in the air. He didn't have an answer, not yet, but something told him, something quiet and undeniable, that this wasn't going to be just one night. Morning came softly, filtering through the curtains in pale gold strips. The man woke with a start, still slouched in the chair, his neck stiff and aching. For a moment he forgot where he was. Then he saw them, Milo and the bobcat, still curled together on the table, but something had changed. The bobcat's breathing was no longer shallow. Its tiny ribcage rose and fell with steady rhythm, and its paws, those delicate spotted paws, twitched as if dreaming. Milo was awake, eyes half closed, still wrapped protectively around the wild kitten like a living blanket. When he noticed the man watching, Milo blinked slowly, then went back to grooming the bobcat's ears. The man exhaled. Relief washed over him, followed immediately by uncertainty. "Okay," he whispered. "Okay, you made it through the night." He stood, stretched, and reached for his phone. The rescue center's number was already pulled up from the night before. All he had to do was call, but his thumb hovered over the screen, and he glanced back at the table. The bobcat's eyes were open now, just barely. Pale amber slits, unfocused but aware. It made a sound, not a meow, something softer, almost a chirp. Milo responded immediately, meowing back in a low, gentle tone. The man had never heard from him before. He set the phone down. Just a few more hours, he told himself. Let him get stronger first. By midday, the bobcat was trying to stand. Its legs wobbled, but it pushed itself up on shaky paws, nose twitching as it explored the towel beneath it. Milo stayed close, nudging it gently whenever it stumbled, guiding it back to the warmth. The man brought a shallow dish of water. The bobcat sniffed it, lapped cautiously, then drank. Milo sat beside it, tail wrapped neatly around his paws, watching like a proud parent. Over the next few days, something extraordinary unfolded. Milo became the bobcat's constant companion. He brought toys to its bed, a crinkled ball, a feather wand, and batted them gently until the bobcat noticed. When the wild kitten cried, a high, lonely sound, Milo would meow loudly in response, pacing until the man came to check. At night, Milo curled around the bobcat without fail, warming it, soothing it, never leaving its side. The man tried to separate them once, worried that Milo was getting too attached. He moved the bobcat to a crate in another room. Milo found him within the hour, yowling at the door, until the man gave in. The bobcat grew stronger. It began eating solid food, teething on furniture legs, learning to walk with confidence. Milo taught it the language of house cats, slow blinks, head bumps, gentle play. But the bobcat was different too. Its pounces were sharper, its climbs were fearless. It scaled the curtains, leapt from countertops, watched the world outside with wild, focused eyes. And the man realized this wasn't temporary anymore. Something beautiful, something he couldn't explain, was unfolding in his home. 3 weeks passed, and the bobcat was no longer a fragile bundle of fur. Its legs had lengthened, powerful and lean. Its paws were wider now, tipped with claws that left faint scratches on the hardwood when it ran. The spotted coat had filled in, thick and luxurious, and its eyes, those pale amber eyes, had sharpened into something keen and wild. Play fighting with Milo had changed too. What used to be gentle paw taps and soft tumbles had become something more intense. The bobcat would crouch low, ears flat, then launch itself at Milo with startling speed. Milo took it all in stride, rolling with the tackles, batting back with surprising patience. But the man could see the difference. The bobcat was growing into what it was always meant to be, a predator. He made the call. The woman from the wildlife rehab center listened patiently as he explained everything. The rescue, the recovery, Milo's unexpected bond with the wild kitten. She was quiet for a moment after he finished. "You did the right thing," she finally said. "He's healthy now, strong. That means he's ready." Ready. The words sat heavy in his chest. "We can arrange a soft release," she continued. "Gradual transition. But the sooner, the better. He needs to learn how to be wild again before he forgets." The man thanked her and hung up. Then he sat at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. In the living room, Milo and the bobcat were curled together on the couch, the tabby's paw draped over the wild kitten's back. Milo's eyes were closed, his purr a low rumble. The bobcat watched the window, ears twitching at every distant sound, the rustle of leaves, the call of a crow. The man knew what he had to do, but knowing didn't make it easier. He built an enclosure in the yard, large, tall, filled with platforms and branches, and hiding spots, a place where the bobcat could stretch, climb, hunt insects, feel the wind, a bridge between the house and the wild. The bobcat took to immediately. It scaled the highest perch within minutes, crouched at the edge, and scanned the tree line with focused intensity. It stalked grasshoppers. It tested its claws against bark. It was beautiful, powerful, free. But every evening, without fail, the bobcat would return to the glass door and press its nose against it, staring inside, looking for Milo. The man stood on the other side, hands in his pockets, heart breaking just a little more each time. The stronger the bobcat became, the harder the choice felt. Was returning him to the wild the right thing, even if it meant breaking the bond that had saved his life? He didn't know, but spring was coming, and time was running out. Spring arrived quietly, bringing with it longer days and warmer winds. The bobcat was no longer a kitten. He was lean, powerful, and undeniably wild. His movements were fluid and precise, his senses razor sharp. He belonged out there now, beyond the fence, beyond the glass. The man knew it, so did the wildlife staff, who came that morning. He and Milo walked the enclosure one last time. The bobcat approached them both, pressing his forehead against Milo's, then against the man's hand. A slow, deliberate goodbye. Then with one final look, those amber eyes, holding something the man couldn't quite name. The bobcat turned and walked into the open forest, under the watchful supervision of the rehab team. Milo stood frozen at the fence line, ears forward, tail low. The man picked him up and carried him inside. The house felt different after that, quieter, emptier. Milo wandered the rooms for days, crying softly, a mournful sound the man had never heard from him before. He checked the enclosure, the couch, the spots where the bobcat used to sleep. He waited by the glass door every evening, watching the trees. The man wondered if he'd made a mistake. Weeks passed, the ache dulled, but it didn't disappear. Then one afternoon, on a whim, the man checked his trail camera, the one he'd set up near the tree line months ago. He scrolled through the footage. Deer, raccoons, a fox, and then him. The bobcat stood at the edge of the woods, bigger now, healthier than ever, his coat gleaming in the dappled sunlight. He wasn't looking at the camera, he was looking at the house. The man's breath caught. He turned up the audio. Two soft mayos, faint but unmistakable, recorded from somewhere off-screen, responding to something, to someone, to Milo. The man didn't think. He walked to the door and opened it. Milo was already on the porch, ears forward, body tense with anticipation. And there, just beyond the yard, the bobcat stepped out from the shadows. He didn't come close, not fully, but he moved forward just enough, close enough for Milo to reach the edge of the steps, close enough for their noses to touch one last time. The bobcat held there for a heartbeat, two, then he turned, slipping back into the trees as silently as he'd come. Milo watched until the forest swallowed him whole. Then he turned, walked back inside, and curled up on the couch, calm now, at peace. The man closed the door and stood in the quiet. The bobcat had stayed only one night, but the bond he left behind would last a lifetime.